Clarice Connolly is a woman's empowerment coach who specializes in supporting women who are frustrated with how life is going, who are exhausted from always beating themselves up, and who want to find their purpose so that they can regain their power as to confidently pursue their dreams. She is also a graduate and affiliate of Accomplishment Coaching. She runs her own podcast. She's an incredible person and has been a ridiculous source of light and empowerment in my own life. And I'm so grateful for Clarice, and I'm so grateful that she's on this show. Clarice, are you ready to rock this?
You know it.
I do know it. I do know it. Awesome. Awesome. So I'm going to bring you on right now, and you are live, and we are going to have a lot of fun today. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Sweet. So let's dive in. Let's get into your story a little bit more so people can know more about you. Why don't you share, what led you to be a coach, an empowerment coach? Share about the journey that's looked like and some of the lessons that you've learned along the way.
Where to even start with that? I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm from the East Coast. And one thing that I've always been passionate about is helping others. And I can say for the longest time, I've always tried to be the backbone, the support, the world's best friend to everyone I've ever encountered and befriended. And as I got older, I think that I used, how much I made a difference or significant in those people's lives as a reason to I failed them. I'm terrible. This is rough. And I ultimately got to a boiling point that I was just there's got to be more to life. There's got to be something more outside of Pittsburgh. And I started having this pull or this little tiny voice or this really big feeling inside that was happening. That was I need to move. Yeah, I need to move. And, all throughout college, I was just I got to finish my degree. I can't move yet. Really kind of turning to, my significant other at the time, my family, I think I want to move. I think California is where it's at. I think that's, and not really having the support or understanding of hey, in this neighborhood, people, get married and move down the street from where they grew up. And it's very traditional. So I didn't really have the support or understanding to want to do these things. And finally, I just was I actually can't ignore this little thing that's happening. I'm just going to do it. And my life transformed far more than I'd ever anticipated. I literally set out with very little resources, plan, and just knew that I could just follow what was pulling me. And honestly, it's a little bit about what I wanted to talk about today. I'm celebrating my 5th year of having just blindly trusted and listened in to whatever it was that was screaming at me to just come to California. And here is where I found that, using the medium of coaching, I can actually better serve and facilitate and support others by using tools and resources and being a reflective surface to actually mirror to people their greatness. And, having this certification and, experience under my belt has helped me to actually make a difference in a more impactful way instead of coming from a fixer mindset and wanting to fix everyone. It's more of just supporting and being, the accountability that people are missing in order to really transform what it is they want their life to look like.
Yeah, and I love the couple things that you said in there. One about the fixing. I know I've been, as a male, caught up with that. Hey, I want to go solve everybody's problem, and that's partly, I think, what create some people's value. They feel I have to solve problems. I have to be valuable and useful for people to want me around. And I know that's a worthiness conversation. I'm sure we're going to get into that today. And I also loved how you said, for the last 5 years, you've been trusting your intuition and learning into that and listening in. And I think that's something that a lot of people have been disconnected with by numbing themselves, by partying, by watching TV, whatever, instead of really tuning into who we are and our soul and that inner guidance. And you just had this pulling at you for so long. You're no, I don't want this to happen anymore. I want to trust it. I know that there's something more. And I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's ultimately the biggest test, right? Like it's like everyone has that intuition and most people call it their gut feeling, and that's fine. I'm a little disconnected to my gut personally. It's more like an anxiety feeling. I'm like, oh, this tension, this like weight, this elephant, and you get so like, how do I mask this? How do I get pills to make it stop? Like, how do I drink more so that it goes away forever? Like, and the courage that it takes to kind of not resort to other people to tell you what to do, and that only takes practice. And I think that that's my main objective for today, is to just kind of create awareness for people that it really is ultimately something to start small and something you want to just start listening in. And even if you can apply a little tiny difference, or trust that like your intuition is telling you to eat cereal versus a hamburger, like when you start to practice, you really grow and strengthen your ability to trust that you actually know and have the answers yourself, so you don't continue to outsource. And that's a lot of things that most people aren't doing these days. And that's okay too, right? You can keep doing the same thing until you notice that there's another option, and that's what creating awareness is.
Wow.
There's always another option.
Yeah. And I love that you start with baby steps, right? So let's start diving in. Like, what do we need to know to be able to take these baby steps, or to be aware when something is calling us? How do we know when it is or when it isn't, kind of thing? Like, where do we start?
Yeah, there's a place where, I wanna really get specific. Like, there's a place where you can kind of notice. That's ultimately the first step, right? Noticing, like, I need to decide whether I want to go to the gym today or not. Like, the first thing that you get out of bed, like, well, it's like the first thing that pops in your head can be the answer. But you also have to be prepared for the rest of the other answers that come rushing in. Like, I should go because I want to lose weight. I have to go because my gym partner is texting me. I need to go because I don't like the way I feel, right? And it's like, just notice, like, hey, I just had one immediate answer, and then I had 7 other super negative answers. And you can kind of just start there, like noticing, like, hey, I asked myself this question, and these are all the things I got, and kind of assess, like, okay, and then you make a decision. And then you come to your next decision. Do I want to eat a bowl of sugary cereal post-workout, or do I want to have a disgusting protein shake? You can literally just like, hey, I'm going to start noticing like what comes up. And the first answer is like, oh, my body says I'm craving milk. Maybe I should put milk in my protein shake, And I think that that's like the hard thing, is to notice, because people and me included, right? Like, if I get out of the gym and I'm so hungry, it's like that need to eat is like, I don't even have a pause. I'm already in the fridge, face deep into whatever leftovers quickest. So the second step is pausing, is really just kind of noticing, like, okay, I had a first response. I had 6 other ultra negative and heavy responses, like, and then just pausing, like, okay, so what's in my highest? Or like, what's in alignment with my commitment? If your commitment's to lose weight, is a bowl of cereal that's ultra sugary going to get you to where you want to be, right? Like, if the protein shake has all the nutrients and, the sodium that you need because you just sweated it all out, like, you're kind of actually craving the sweets because you need a little bit of the sodium. But that's a place where you actually get to like just practice, And I think that that's the third thing. If anybody could take anything away from this, is just like, this isn't going to be an overnight process. Like, this isn't going to be, oh, you start listening to the first 2 questions of your day and then you're like a master at it. It's just practicing, like, let's ask myself the silly small questions first and see like what feels right? Like, you could dive into that bowl of cereal because you thought it was it. But if you start having like all this remorse and regret, you're just kind of like, oh, all right, maybe I didn't choose my intuition in this one. Maybe I chose the little kid inside that's just like, I worked hard, give me cereal. So, it's really just like practicing. And practicing just asking yourself the little things, practicing asking yourself the big things, and just seeing what happens. It's really, ultimately, I guess I'm numbering these. So if we're going to do the fourth step, it would just be unattachment, unattachment to what happens, unattachment to, like, if you choose the bowl of cereal, eat the heck out of the cereal and, appreciate your choice. Cool. If you start to have all this remorse, you can kind of sit with, like, maybe not. Okay, moving forward, not like using it as an excuse to beat yourself up. Like, that is something that's so automatic. Like, I did it wrong. I listened to the wrong voice. Ugh. Ew. And it's not evidence. It's not evidence as to why you don't know how to use this thing called intuition. It's not evidence as to why you're a big fat failure. It's totally just a practice. Like, if you're trying to learn something new, competitive athletes aren't amazing the first time they hit the ring, the mat, the whatever, right? Like, it just takes commitment to wanting to change something and make something different than what it was before.
Yeah, there's always a version 1 to everything, right? Every master was once a disaster. There's all these sayings and proverbs, and it's true. With our intuition, depending on people's programming and where they've come from in the past, will depend on how easily and how quickly they get in tune with that. So if you're listening out there in the audience and you're loving this content, one, this is incredible, Clarice. Thank you for diving into this conversation.
Absolutely.
But for everybody who's listening out there in the audience, I want you to type in patience, because this takes patience, and you have to be patient with yourself, and you have to love yourself. So type in patience in the comments right now, because this is gold, gold, gold. And Clarice, I really loved how you said unattached, right? Be unattached from it. Whatever it is that you do, like, just go fully into it and learn after you do it, after you follow through with that 100% that you gave, that, like, learn how to feel how you feel after that. Like, how do I feel after I ate this bowl of cereal? How do I eat? How do I feel after I, went all day without eating? Do you feel good, or do you feel, because you thought you were trying to get in shape, right? Did you feel good with that? Or is there a better solution, a way to intuit and listen in to know, like, you could probably be eating some kind of veggies that don't really give you very many calories and feel a lot better about yourself? Right.
And there's even, if, we notch it up to something not so silly, it's like dating. Yeah. You get on a dating site, you find all these people to date, you go out on a date. If at first, like, your immediate, like, insides are screaming, like, oh, not so much, the guy or girl, like, hasn't opened their mouth, you kind of get that immediate realization, whether it's in your gut or, like, in your chest. For me, you kind of get the realization of, like, oh, not so much. Like, there's something about this guy or girl, like, like, that's your intuition. Like, if we're looking for places like, well, how do I identify it? Or what does it feel like? How will I know what it is? Think of ways that you've experienced this inner pulling or inner, like, knowing without having a reason, like, without having evidence or someone else's, like, voice sitting inside of you. And that's the way you can kind of think of, like, oh, I do have an intuition. It's just going to be this little quiet voice that's over-trumped by reason and logic and, analyzing information.
And ego.
And ego. Yes. I think conditioning was the biggest piece for me, too. Was like, no one moves outside of the city I'm from. And so I proposed this for 4 years straight, and people were like, why would you do that? Like, everyone you know and loves here, right? And even, my first attempt when I moved across country by myself is I landed in Sacramento because I had family there. It's like, oh, everybody was just like, just live with family. And just still feeling like that, this isn't maybe it. I didn't feel settled. I wasn't really convinced. I wasn't, like, all in, like, this is where I want to put roots down. And knowing that you can course correct. I think that's unattachment and course correct are, the next kind of places you want to venture to. It's like, hey, you did the thing, you committed, you moved across country. Like, maybe it's not so much it. It's closer to, like, one step closer than where you were. But, like, what can you do to, like, adjust it? Like, how can you make it so that it's actually resonating with you? And that requires listening in. Like, so often we outsource and turn to others and ask others, what do you think that I should do?
Mm-hmm.
And if you kind of break it down to how you were as a kid, right? If you turn to your mom and ask, Mom, what should I do?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever your mom tells you, you're just like, I'm not doing that. Whatever, mom told me, right?
Right.
And the greatest thing about coaching, and especially ontologically based coaching, which is what I'm trained in, is that you're more likely to listen to your own advice.
Mm.
And when you decide an idea, it's like, hell yeah, I decided that. There's so much more power in feeling like it's your own decision and it's your own choice and that you came up with it.
Yeah, I love that because, when you said outsource, I also think of external authority, right? When we put power into other people's hands, it lets us be the victim, right? It lets us escape without taking responsibility, without owning that responsibility. And something I've been saying just today, and I tell all my clients and everybody, like, I'm the one, right? I'm the one who makes the difference. I'm the one who has the voice. If it is to be, it's up to me. And you're the one, Clarice, and everybody who's watching, you are the one for your cause, for your belief, for your message to share it. Nobody else is going to do it for you. And you can't like rely on other people to do that. So what we have to start doing is trusting ourselves. And like you said, listen in to hear what is that voice and like, what is it saying? So how do we know, I'm curious, Clarice, how do we know if like how do we know which one it is? Is it just like based on the feeling, like which voice it is, like if it's ego or doubt or insecurity, or if it is our higher self, if it is our intuition, like how do we detect that?
So that's ultimately something where you kind of want to sit with. I'm trying to think of an example. Oh, I can just say a life example. I have a beautiful soul who's in my tribe, and it was her birthday yesterday. And for me, as an entrepreneur, like, it's really easy to have all these other things that you want to do in life. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone's going hiking during the days, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Like, everyone's got something else that's really cool other than work that's happening during the week. And so my commitment is to grow my business, to spread light, to make an impact, to really transform lives, and to give back to the community. And that's my overarching commitment. And the structure and the business creates that commitment and enforces what I'm aligned with. The essentially internal conflict of the situation, the choice I had to make was to break my commitment and go to the beach to celebrate this person. And in that created so much anxiety for me. Like, I was just like, I really want to go because I love this beautiful soul and I honor her and worship her. Like, she is a phenomenal being. And I didn't want to be that, like, nobody else was there. Like, that's my story, right? Like, oh, you have to go. Nobody else is going to be there. What if no one else is there? And then she won't see how amazing she is, So, like, that was the voice. That was, like, the caretaker that was like, gotta go. Not unacceptable. And then my commitment of, like, I committed to myself that I would be making a difference 9 to 5, like, Monday through Friday. This is my first and foremost, right? And so it created this inner battle, this anxiety stricken, like, if I don't go, then I'm going to be viewed as this, right? So judgment comes in. If I do go, then, like, I'm going to regret that I wasn't staying true to myself, right? So I think the one way that you can kind of go is, what is your overarching commitment? Like, what are you more committed to? Is it losing the weight? And, or is it the temporary satisfaction of eating the bowl of cereal versus the protein shakes, right? I don't know why I keep going back to that, but we're going to do it. Okay. And, the same thing with dating, right? Like, do you get to a date with a person who's unemployed and not your actual status quo, and you're committed to finding a highly successful businesswoman and entrepreneur who's like-minded? But when you end up on your third date with someone who doesn't fit your conditions of satisfaction, like, you kind of realize, I'm settling for a temporary fix versus, like, a long-term commitment. So I think that that's really just kind of sitting with, Like, what are you more committed to, the temporary satisfaction or the long term? And, where is it resonating from? Is it because it's guilt? Is it because it's your fear of judgment? Is it because your fear of abandonment? So being able to just sit with that, and like I said multiple times now, is you only learn whether you're choosing from fear or ego or your highest by just practicing. And there's no right way. Like, I just want to like bust up that context. It's like, there's no right or wrong way to doing this. Everyone's journey is different and everyone's sensations are different. Some people, like I said, carry it in their gut, some in their chest, some in their, temples. There's so many ways to listen into your own body. And sometimes that's ultimately, if it's the first word that pops in your head, do that.
Have you found any techniques to accelerate the ability to get in tune with intuition? Like any techniques or events or practices, exercises, anything like that?
Life coaching, one. I think that's the biggest one, right? That's the biggest one for me personally. Yeah. A lot of my clients, every call we meet for an hour a week, it's the same patterns, the same pattern of conversation. And the more that you get reflected, like, hey, here's your story again. Hey, here's the thing that keeps coming up. Like, you can kind of see in yourself the hard truth that, like, your story of I'm not good enough is prevalent and it's everywhere. And sometimes, there's this power that goes into seeing how sneaky your ego is, or like how sneaky your survival mechanism is, because it can hide your context of I'm not enough in other ways, like I'm not worth it, and worth is another layer of not feeling enough. So it's really having a coach who speaks to your greatness, like who speaks to your highest version of yourself, to mirror to you, like, hey, these are all the ways that you're sabotaging yourself. So you can kind of create that awareness that it's like, oh man, I do that in not only my business, but my love life and also my social life. If there's, what I'm also learning too is having a support system isn't just a life coach. Like, this is also including a tribe, whether it's your spiritual tribe, whether it's your entrepreneurial tribe. It's just a community. So what communities are you involved in that are like-minded? And get them involved. I have a team of coaches I work with on a regular basis. I have a sisterhood that I live with. I live in a women's empowerment house. And between them and my spiritual groups, my support groups, my ACA groups, I have people where I'm sharing what I'm committed to across the board. And when they know that that's what I'm up to and this is what I'm committed to or this is what I'm working on, they're able to support me in that. Hey, I remember you have this thing about like emotional eating and we're kind of talking about some heavy stuff. I see that you're, diving into whatever, right? It's being vulnerable enough to make the connection, to share your raw, like, this is what I'm struggling with, can you support me? And being very like specific. I think being very clear, like, hey, I'm open to whatever tasteful, distasteful way you want to call me out or whatever way works. Like, I'm just more committed to becoming and evolving my highest version of self. And getting your support groups involved across the board, everywhere, so that you constantly have the structures to be able to meet the level of your resistance. And lastly, I would say just practicing. If it's your significant other, someone who's close to you, a coworker, just getting someone to do it on a regular basis and to hold you accountable.
Yeah. I love those, especially when you let people know your commitment. That gives them the opportunity to make a difference, right?
Yes.
And when we're listening to our intuition, which is most likely the case when we're getting other people involved, because we know our higher self knows that, like, if we try to do it on our own,
slippery slope.
It's like good luck,
Yeah.
So
that's a really important thing to break up too, right? Like, we're all or the majority of us, me specifically, are raised to believe like we have to do life alone and separately. And, you know, this whole like lone wolf in sheep clothing, it was my identity forever. It's like, well, if nobody's on board and no one gets me, no one understands what I want to do in life, I'll do it by myself, you know? And there's so much room for fault and so much room for, you know, backdooring yourself and giving up and quitting. And you really don't actually get to speak into fruition like that, what you're up to, if nobody knows. So it's kind of like you don't have someone to kind of be like, hey, man, if you're the only one that knows what you want to be doing. Yeah. And when you have healing in numbers or healing in community, there's such a significant like increase of productivity and results and movement in the things that you're trying to break up, because it's not feeling like you need to do this alone. You know, it normalizes life situations. Like, you're not the only one that's working on this. And it really kind of has this like belonging feeling that we actually all really yearn for. And when you heal these little micro wounds or big wounds,
or big ones, yeah,
your situation, right? Yeah. It really moves and shifts a lot of things for you internally, so that you can actually access these things louder. So it's really, and I'm not necessarily tooting my own horn, but it's like we as human beings have plenty of years of experience of throwing on reasons and excuses and stories and things to cloud our highest judgment and to cloud, you know, what it feels like to listen in to our, you know, highest self and our intuition.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how it's trusting the people around you with that commitment. And what's great about this topic is it's listening in, right? So you think that, to listen in, like all I have to do is just be by myself and close off the walls and stay away from everyone and you know, listen in. But it's really when we open ourselves up and become vulnerable with that commitment, what's important to us, and share like authentically and be our authentic self and step into that power and own that greatness and own who we are and let other people in, that we're able to, I feel like when we close the door and like we're not with people, that we're actually able to be like, wow, you know, like I let people in today and I feel like more in tune and in touch with who I am because of what I shared, the moments, the experiences, the memories with these people, that allows us to dive in and actually listen in even more effectively.
Yeah, I think that's like, it's funny because I realize now in retrospect, it's the way that I've always been. But to lead by example is kind of funnier to hear even out loud. Is like, you know, the power of vulnerability, to be so open. I've just always been an open book, but to be so open, you really allow people to see your soul and not the facades and the stories and the identities and the labels. And when you create that vulnerability, when you create the vulnerable space of, you know, sharing that raw truth for you, you actually almost like unlock or peel back a layer or a wall of somebody else's heart when they hear that. It grants them permission to also meet you as authentically and vulnerably as you have met them. And, you know, a lot of the things that I'm working on is that quality of connection, the depth of connection. It's so easily confused with like sexual desire, but in reality, like there's so much depth in connection through vulnerability than there is, you know, by feeling like you need to rush and hurry up and get naked with each other, right? But the vulnerability piece leaves so much access to creating such a deeper quality connection that most people yearn for, but they don't actually realize how to attain. Yeah. And in that connection, you're able to create, again, more access. You're moving the things, you're moving the judgment, you're moving the walls, the barricades. And when you can provide that opportunity for someone else, it's amazing to see how half the time they're actually working on the same thing too. You know, it's like, if you can have the courage to be like, dude, like, I don't ever feel like I get the validation I need, or, you know, whatever the thing is, I can't think of one off the top of my head. someone can meet you with like, oh, I never feel like I'm enough either, you know? And then you immediately create that soul to soul connection. Like you are two people that just want to survive this thing called life. And you can see that through that, like, I can empower you and you can empower me when we're doing that thing again.
Yes, yes. And for everybody who's out there, this conversation, Clarice, you're rocking it. You're rocking it, rocking it. For everybody who's out there, I want you to type in the comment box, trust. Because it's really about trusting ourselves to go deep, and it's about trusting others. So go ahead and type that in the comment box right now, trust, because that's your commitment to trust yourself, and it's also your commitment to surround yourself with people who you trust, you're able to share those deep, intimate moments with. That's a commitment that I know I have, Clarice has, and we surround ourselves with those people who have that as well, which is really, really important. And I also wanted to share back to the point about listening in, right? Like making sure that we're in tune with those emotions. When we have a coach like you, Clarice, when you're coaching people, when you're there, when you're the space to be a mirror, especially a coach is a mirror for people to be whoever they are and however they are, and for them to get that reflected back so that they can see and choose, make a conscious choice. Like, is this who I want to keep being? Is this how I want to keep showing up? And that's a great process. One of the best processes of listening in to what's actually going on, right? It's not so much like listening into like, closing your eyes and meditating, but like what's running the show. That could be one, right? But what's running the show? What am I feeling? What are the sensations that I'm experiencing? What's going on that's creating how I'm showing up in in the world right now? And ultimately, like the types of results that I'm producing, the types of people who I'm getting around and attracting into my life, the types of behaviors that I'm engaging in. Is it like self-sabotaging behaviors, or is it uplifting and empowering behaviors? And it's so important that we have a coach to really help us grow and become our greatest possible selves, and be able to listen in. And I think it's also a lot of emotional intelligence, right? Being aware of what am I feeling right now, so I can distinguish that.
There's also, there's also other mediums too, right? Like there's ways that you can do meditation. I don't want to discredit that. There's also ways that you can start to listen in yoga, right? Like yoga is really great to clear your mind. And you're like, oh, can I do this pose? Can I not do this pose, right? There's all these other mediums. And the only reason that I lean towards coaching is because while you can do all these things on a mat or in a facility or in a studio, right? You kind of don't have the accountability or structure to actually apply that off the mat. And you can be a absolutely stellar yogi. And I know that it's possible, right, to hold yourself accountable. But we're talking to the people that, are up to huge things, that are up to change the world. Like these people are going to be up against some huge fears because they're playing in a huge game. The bigger your game, the louder the voices. And it's really just kind of listening into what you need. Hey, maybe just getting on a yoga mat is the first step. Maybe just starting meditation. Maybe meditation is super daunting. Start breathing. 3 clearing breaths can actually get you from out of your head and into your heart. And that really creates a better access point, because as soon as you start to understand these things and try to logically assess them, you're not actually listening to what your heart can actually tell you. It's really not the same. 2 different entities.
Both valuable, both valuable in their own right. Like they're both important. It's both critical that we master them both. We must master how to plan, how to create a plan to impact the world, and then trust. Like create the plan and then trust the process. Like create the plan, then throw the plan away, and then trust your heart that like everything will work out, kind of thing, And the plan will work.
That's a big thing too. Is like a lot of my coaching sessions, I create these projects. It's like ultimately, where do you want to be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, right? And it's like without knowing the how, because a lot of people want to like logically assess and analyze how we're going to get there. It's just trusting that you will get there because you're manifesting it and you're creating it, and you will listen to the inner guidance of like, all right, what's my first step? And so often it's like the sabotage of comparison. Like, oh, I want to hire Tony Robbins as coach because I know how Tony Robbins got there and that's how he got it. I don't know why I can't get his name right. But, you know, it's like, cool, that's not a one size fits all recipe that worked for him. Maybe it works for a million other people. But like, what if you could empower you as your inner guru and really just like have it that you know your first next step? And like, how much does that light you up, knowing that you're the one that's going to come save you. You're the one that's got the next answer, and you know what's best for you.
Would you say that people have to know like this big vision for their life or be crystal clear on it for them to get the maximum value out of listening in? Or would you say that you can listen in without knowing that? Or what have you found with regards to that?
I think that it's great to differentiate the difference between like having an expectation. Like, I expect myself to be married with 3 children and a huge house in San Diego by 30, right? I get that a lot with women, and especially men too, right? Like 30 is this big number, and you approach it and you're like, the ticking time bomb. Like, I'm not married, I don't even have children, or I don't have a husband or wife, but I'm having children already. You know, you kind of begin to realize like there's a place to like notice where society kind of has inflicted what is acceptable, and like what's true to you, right? So I think that there's like this sweet hurdle that once you hit 30 and you're like, all right, well, don't have a dream career, not married, don't have children, maybe I own a house. You kind of get to see that it's like lightness. You need to bring a little lightness, a little ease, and ease up on the expectations that you have for yourself. You know, are they achievable? Yeah, exactly. Are they achievable? Am I having fun while I'm trying to achieve them? Are they actually what I want, or am I doing this for someone else? And hey, I mean, for me, it was like moving across country was like this big, like, I don't even know. And you can course correct. Like I said, like you end up in Sacramento and you're like, what was I thinking? Cool. Move to another state, move to another city. You know, if you get to the place where you're like, this is where I thought I wanted to be and it still doesn't feel right, loosen up on yourself. Like try something different, you know, swing again. I think that there's no such thing as dreaming too big. It's just having the patience, the dedication, and, you know, really just the passion for what you're doing. And to ultimately start with, like, what is your why? Like getting clear on why you're doing whatever it is that you want to do. And literally, I mean, one of my favorite quotes ever, I'm never going to ever, it's my favorite. Michael Beckwith, I think his name is, if I can remember his name, it'd be perfect. It's the pain pushes until the future pulls.
I'm writing that down.
It's amazing. It's like your stories and the heartache, the heartbreak, your struggling, you know, childhood or adolescence years or whatever it is, right? The pain of that pushes you to just push on and just to get by, to survive, to, you know, make enough, to be enough. Until you start to realize like that pain is exhausting, you know, until you get to your rock bottom or your I've had enough, that you start to realize like something else needs to pull you, like your future vision, like living into who you want to become, then becomes your guiding light. And it's really a courageous act to live in your highest self and the version that you imagine yourself to become. But it's like so much more empowering and fulfilling when you take the baby steps to get there. And it's like, you know, I want to be a world speaker and to have published a book that makes a difference in so many people's lives. And while it seems like, oh, to be traveling the world to speak about a book and to empower and inspire people seems like, oh man, out of reach, right? When you talk about it, it's like your intuition's like, yes, absolutely, that's what we want, you know? And you really start to like trust, like, this is going to happen. Like this little heart here is like steering me. And my intuition's like, go get her, you know? And it's also scary, right? Like you want that to be something that like scares you enough to like, I can do this. I got this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be my biggest, highest version of self, and I'm going to make a global impact. And trusting that your intuition is going to get you there. You just have to listen in. And like, that's again, like if I can create anything, like if I can have anyone walk away with this or with anything from this, is that just to create the awareness, like you hold all of the answers that you need for every situation. Just listen in, you know, just notice, just pause, just reflect and ask yourself the hard question. And, you know, just release the expectations and the rigidity of getting it right and being perfect, and greet them with like open arms and a loving smile, like, you know, to just get familiar, because they are there. There's no banishing these things, the perfectionist, the, you know, need to get it right, and the inability to feel like enough. Like it's just little pieces of you that your inner child has been trying to scream at you for however many years. And you attend to them, because it's, you know, that quote of like, what you resist persists. You resist identifying or owning and comforting these little pieces, they're going to just keep screaming louder.
Yes.
And it doesn't go away.
But you do get better at dealing with it, right? Distinguishing it when it's running the show and saying, hey, I see that. And at first it's like, it might take you a week to see that it was like running you that entire week. And then maybe it comes down to a couple days or a day, and then a couple hours, and then like a couple minutes, you just feel like crap and go, hey, that was running me. Nope, not anymore. I'm choosing consciously something else.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I think that that's another piece that I want to like put in people's space, is that there's such thing as raising the floor. And that's exactly what you're describing. Like everyone, or type A's, this one's for you. You know, have that like high bar thing. Like I want to set up a super high bar. Like I will have 50 clients by the end of the year. You know, there's like, gung ho, I'm going to do this. It's, you know, it's also noticing that, yeah, you can have the super high bar to pull you forward, but you also have to reflect and celebrate, or, you know, reward yourself on raising your floor. And raising your floor is exactly as you said. It's like, you know, your thought is to like, oh, I'm going to banish however many times I feel like I'm not enough. Like, cool. That's a high bar. Notice where your expectations are. And when you start to notice, like when you begin with a coach, oh my God, I say it 3 times an hour that I'm not enough and I can't do this, and I give up on myself, right? When you can kind of notice that it's like, it happens every single day. And then when you raise the floor, it's like, oh, it only happens on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then you start to notice like, okay, maybe I'm only doing it on Mondays and Wednesdays because of my workload. And then you're kind of starting to notice like, maybe it's just Mondays that I'm doing it because it's like, everybody doesn't like Mondays, you know, and maybe it's just like not all day on Monday. It starts to become for an hour at the beginning of the day on Mondays. And then so it's like raising the floor is like how long that you're doing these things or how often, and you decrease the frequency and you kind of start to shift like, man, I've come a long way. It's not as often as it used to be. Yeah. And celebrate that.
Yeah, I love that you just said that. I was just going to say, like, celebrate the small wins, celebrate the small victories, or even the big ones. Celebrate everything. Celebrate every opportunity that you can. If you're out there listening, like, celebration is one of the biggest secrets. Like the most, like it's obvious, it's hidden in plain sight. You know, everybody like celebrates people who are big, but we don't celebrate ourselves enough. And like we are just by existence, by virtue of existing, deserve celebration for ourselves, you know, to celebrate ourselves because we're alive, because we made it another day, because we, you know, chose healthy food choices or didn't get in a car accident yesterday, whatever, you know, like celebrate. Thank you. And that's been such a big factor for me. And I know you too, Clarice. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's, you know, thank you to my sisterhood and tribe of really just reflecting to me, like how it's been a struggle for me to celebrate because I wasn't celebrated as I wanted to be and as I felt like I should be. And so I so heavily celebrate others. And so without being in that vulnerable space to be like, hey, I'm not actually really good at celebrating me. Like, can you support me in, doing so, right? It's just like asking for the support that you need and reaching out to those that you know and love that can, meet you there. And in that, like creating a system, like that's, what coaching is creating systems and structures and accountability to keep you moving forward. And it's, a tiny takeaway is just really noticing that you can celebrate your wins. Like at the end of your day, like have a friend, enroll them in, hey, do you want to pick me up before bed? Let's text back and forth or ask each other or check in, like what's some of your wins that you have for today? And it's really, really just a matter of listening in to like, at the end of the day, if you're depleted and feeling exhausted and, want to outsource with TV or substances or sugary sweets, like how can you source yourself from the inside? And that's celebrating yourself. Like, hey, I made it another day. I did 2 things today. I made a phone call today. And how much comes from just that can really surprise you in the compounding effect regard of like, if you start doing it every day, you start to find value in your day when you weren't actually looking.
Yeah. And I heard that, sometimes we look to outside things, substances, whatever, food, people to fill us up. Right. And when we're listening in and we're asking ourselves, what is it that I need right now? Or what is it that I desire? What's the feeling that I want to have? And we, like you said, get support from other people to help us with that and hold us accountable or give us structures. I loved how you said, just text someone. Here were my wins for the day. What were yours? And like, I'm awesome. So are you. It's like so simple.
And that's the thing. Like, I know there's these judgments or preconceived notions that like, as soon as you start talking about something like intuition, it's like super hippie and very airy, like, oh, what is this? Right. It's the same thing as trusting your gut. Like, we could have this conversation about gut too, which just sounds very masculine and also like in your head. Right. But it's not this like inconceivably hard thing to wrap your mind around. You can really start with little tiny things that are the exact same thing. They just aren't, the judgmental pieces of like, whatever it is, right? I know that that's a lot of things that you come up against because you're like, oh, trusting your intuition. But there's tools, and life is continually giving you lessons and giving you tools to do things differently. And it's like, are you noticing or seeing and actually continually doing the thing that's different?
I'm going to pause you right there. Are you out there listening to the tools that life is giving you right now, aka me, Clarice, this show, the books that we're mentioning, the quotes, Michael Beckwith? Are you listening? Are you paying attention? Are you taking that thread of what lands in your lap and running with it? So I love that. I love that. And Clarice, we're coming towards the end of this, so I really want to walk away with like the final takeaways and any last minute things you want people to know about listening in, because this conversation has been incredible and so valuable.
Good. Yes. Ultimately, it's really just practicing compassion with yourself, just holding it that you have all the answers, that the way to relieve your own anxiety is to follow what created it. To listen in to like, okay, what am I anxious about? It's because I can't make a decision. Well, what's the decision about? Choosing this or that. Well, where's my commitment? And what you'll notice is if you take one step towards that thing that's creating the anxiety, it actually dissipates the entirety, like the anxiety entirely. And it's really great to kind of understand that, okay, maybe it's not in your gut, it's that anxious feeling. Listening in is having it that you hold the answers, that you are perfect as you are, like you are the one that is going to save yourself, and that only, the universe is here to provide you with more lessons and examples and tools to support you in that. Another big point too I want to make is that, you know, doing life alone and separate is a context and it's an option, and that there is so much more power in healing in community and healing in numbers and creating your own support group outside of your family, like outside of the people that you continually attempt to make support with or tribes with and have not worked, right? And I think just patience, practice, listening in, pause, really, you know, getting clear on what your why is. And if you don't know, don't be afraid to ask for support. Reach out to a life coach, get a sample session, you know, go to meditation classes, start listening to breathing exercises, go to yoga, right? Like there are so many different mediums and modalities and ways that you can actually create a better life. Like do those.
I also hear that, like, just telling yourself, I made the commitment. I made the commitment to be my greatest possible self. I made the commitment to be my higher self. I made the commitment to listen in, right? If you're out there listening, like, say to yourself, I commit. Like, you don't have to write anything. Like, you could write it, I commit, in the comment box if you want. But, like, just tell yourself, like, and close your eyes and feel it, like, I commit. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I commit. And that's why, you know, doing those things like reading the books, finding, you know, sources of empowerment, taking the steps, doing the free session, that's so valuable.
Yeah. And so part of that in the action that I'm creating is I have a couple weeks left. I'm starting a group coaching program June 1st.
Sweet.
So creating the learning to love yourself. And during this time, we're going to be doing a lot of mental and physical well-being to embrace every part of you, so as to like not be ashamed and kind of own your own power, and what that looks like in healing in groups and community, and having those constant reflections and creating that support group or tribe that you've been longing for.
Wow.
So look out for that.
I'm typing it in. That sounds epic. Epic. And then we had Mike Chasman, who said leap of faith. He also mentioned earlier that you're another accomplishment coaching grad, and he's going to be on the show later today. So I recommend you guys catch up and make a connection. I think that'd be super awesome. And other than that, so you mentioned about your group coaching program. How else can people stay connected with you? Wonderful, awesome, incredible Clarice.
Yay! So I am on Facebook.
Okay.
Book of Face. I also have a website, empoweringwomen.coach.
Okay.
And Instagram. I mean, I got all the social medias. I'm like, what is my Facebook tag? Whoa, I'll get in there. Hold on 1 second. So you can find me on Facebook. It's www.facebook.com/Clarice CO coaching. And I have a podcast that's live on WS Radio the first and third Friday. So this Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you can find that at wsradio.com, and then Studio A if you want to listen live, first and third Friday. And that shows Heart Empowering Women. So we just kind of dive in. We talk about ultimately like intuition, what it means to set boundaries, all the very fundamental pieces, heart-centered conversations around like, what does that look like? How does that show up? Like, how do we change that? Like, what is the cost of not shifting our perspectives? And really kind of like this, if you got in a group of 10 women and had a conversation about these things that no one's talking about, like, what can you shift? Like, what's possible?
Yes.
And you're not alone.
Yeah, I listened to a little bit of it, and I'm like, this is like total raw, real, like, you know, totally, yeah. I love
exactly.
it.
No, totally. And that's the thing is like, you know, you never, girls getting it together is just this raw, like heart forward conversation about like what's eating a Gilbert grape. Like it's just really having the hard conversations we've been holding in because we didn't feel safe enough to talk about. And just wanting to like let the universe in to hear like, hey, it's not just you, you know, it's all of us. And what that shifts for you by just hearing yourself and what's being said. And I think that that's, again, like soothing that urge to belong and to be heard or to be seen, and the normalizing this of everyone's trying to get by as the best they can.
Wow. Well, Clarice, you are a superstar, and I'm so excited to see all the women's lives that you impact, because you are walking the talk. You are being an example of what you are sharing and espousing and preaching, and you're like the example. You know, it's so important that people have integrity with what they're doing, and you are that person, and I appreciate you being in my life and the source of light that you are in my life, and as well as everybody's life that you are in, and the women who are around you in that empowering house. I don't know what the women's house.
I know, the tongue twisters.
They are so lucky to have you there. Like, beyond
Thank
blessed.
you so much. I appreciate you for making this possible. Thanks for spreading awareness and having people be able to chime in and learn new things, shift their paradigms, and obviously the platform to make that possible. So thank you for doing what you're doing and spreading your light and power with the world. World needs more you. Keep it up.
You. Us together. We do this together. And if you're out there listening, go follow Clarice. Go sign up for her program that's starting in June. Message her if you want more details about it. Visit her website. It's epic, awesome. I was looking at it while I was working on my own website this weekend. I was like, dang, this is awesome. She even has a cooler Phoenix than me. It's great.
Yes. Phoenix was made for me, and she's perfect.
Yes. So you have the best day ever. And thanks for coming on, and we look forward to seeing you back on the show sometime in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Take care, Clarice.
All right. Bye.